What's up, Cougar Nation, and welcome again aboard the Hype Train podcast. I'm your host, Joe Wheat. That's at Joe Wheat27 on Twitter. As always, for my boys, Hunter Miller, Trevor Levitt, and special guest Aaron Mendoza today. Boys, do you hear that? Do you hear that? The ball is tipped, and there you are.
Hold on. That's the end.
Lives from AJ Dybantsa.
I mean, first of all, beautiful voice. Second of all, that signifies the end of March Madness. We need a song that indicates that we are just getting started.
It's the ball has yet to be tipped. Wonderful time of the year.
That's a little bit better.
There we go. I am really looking forward to the reduced productivity that's going to be happening at work tomorrow. If you're my boss listening to this, I'm just kidding, like 100%. I will be locked in. Yeah, absolutely. I look like an idiot. I look like Kurt Rambis. But you know what? That's what we do for the Cougs. We all got to make sacrifices, and I got to make myself look dumb. We got a new guest today.
Hold on. For the listeners and the watchers, currently we are experiencing technical difficulties in which Joe cannot see Trevor.
Nope. Which makes this extra funny.
Trevor is dressed exactly like Joe.
Oh, there he is. Let's go.
And he doesn't know it.
I see him now.
So Joe is describing how he looks like an idiot. Meanwhile, Trevor is dressed exactly the same, unbeknownst to Joe.
Oh, amazing. Dude, we are so stoked. We got March Madness going on. I wanted to introduce our special guest, Aaron Mendoza. Aaron is our basketball correspondent for Cougs on SI. If you like any of the content that I've put out on Sports Illustrated or that Casey Lundquist has put out on Sports Illustrated, I promise you Aaron's going to be better. One of my memories of Aaron was him saying, Joe, you know how much you like BYU football? That's how I feel about BYU basketball. Like, this is his life. He eats, drinks, and breathes this stuff. He's from the Kansas City area. And if I'm not mistaken, were you there last week at the tournament?
I was. Yep, I was.
So we got boots on the ground literally in the podcast. So he is going to be our expert analyst on this as we pretend to know anything about college basketball beyond ball, go, and hoop. So Aaron, introduce yourselves to us. Introduce yourselves to the audience. Our newest nominee for Hype Train Guest of the Year.
I love it. Yeah, quite the intro. Yeah, I like Joe said, from Kansas City. Born and raised, lived there my whole life. That was not in Utah. So I grew up going to the Big 12 tournament, was so stoked when BYU joined the Big 12 to have them in the backyard and excited to see what happens. We've been in the Big 12 for a couple of years now. We've been in March a couple of years now. There was a period where we were always waiting and wondering if our name was going to get called on Selection Sunday. And now we're in the thick of it. Now we expect to be there. Now we expect to make a run. So it's been a welcome shift. But yeah, I followed BYU basketball like many when Jimmer was doing his thing. That was like my entry point. I was a Mizzou fan growing up, being from Missouri. And then I saw Jimmer do Jimmer things. And that's when the corner turned and never looked back. Never followed Mizzou sports after that. That truly was the end of my Mizzou fandom. And here I am, all these years later, still on the hype train for BYU and have loved every second of it.
One of the rare members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that left Zion to come to Utah.
Aaron, right. Thank you for joining. Jackson Payne is shaking in his boots right now. He's run unopposed for Guest of the Year the last 3 years, and now in the span of like 2 weeks, we brought on 2 additional contenders. Question for you, being in person, how terrible was the LED basketball court at the Big 12 tournament?
It's even worse than you probably could imagine. I was sitting like 5th row for the West Virginia game, BYU West Virginia, and seeing it up close, it's even worse than it is on TV. I think like the effects look really cool on TV, but seeing it in person, I didn't love seeing the graphics and all of that. It doesn't look as cool. I think it's made for the TV, but in person, it's a much different viewing experience.
Which is kind of hilarious because I was thinking, yeah, this doesn't look very good on TV, but it probably looks really cool in person. So yeah, apparently it was just a bad idea all around, except for the 2 Arizona players that they held at gunpoint to talk about how awesome the floor was.
And then they changed it, and then they got rid of the floor.
Within 30 minutes later, they're like, actually, we're going to switch this out.
Yeah. So, guys, it's March. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to wake up on Thursday morning of March Madness week, go through the bracket, make my picks because I'm a procrastinator and still haven't filled out my bracket yet, and not see my team there and pick them to make a Final Four run. Like, I just could not imagine what that's like, even though that was my life, 7 years ago. But BYU's in it. Maybe not the seed we would have expected preseason, but BYU earned a 6th seed, as we all pretty much expected with the way the season turned out. Wanted to get your guys' take. There's always a lot of talk every year about BYU being punished for Sunday play or anything like that. How do you feel about BYU seeding and their matchup with, I guess, before we get to Texas, just how do you feel about BYU seeding in this tournament?
Yeah, felt like the seeding was good. I know even last season, it felt like there were a lot of talks about BYU being a 5 seed, and because of the Sunday play, they got moved back to the 6 seed. And this year feels like, whether it's BYU gaining more credibility or, purely AJ Dybantsa, which could be very well be the case, like kept BYU exactly where I felt like they would end up. We were all kind of texting that in the group chat before, and was happy to see that. I think you look at like what Kevin Young's doing. He's trying to build continue to build upon a respectable program, and a program that expects to be, as you mentioned, Aaron, like in March, year in and year out. And I think this kind of was this seed in particular was kind of another chapter in that, where the committee, rather than punishing BYU and pushing them back to this 7-10 line, kept them where they should be to give them the best chance to move forward.
Yeah, I like the seed as well. I think Kevin's been talking a lot lately about the 3 iterations of BYU. The team he thought he was going to have going into the season, the team with Richie, and then this team post Richie. And so I think it's been a whirlwind of a season. But something that's been interesting that I've been talking to people about is the weird shift is, let's say we had the season we were expecting to have, everyone was healthy, we won, some of the big time games. We would probably end up being, for sure a top 4 seed, maybe in that, 1 seed, 2 seed, who knows, how high we could have gotten. And there's a lot of pressure on your back when you have that kind of seed, right? The expectations are championship or bust, Final Four or bust. And now it's shifted a bit. Now everyone's doubting BYU. Now people don't think BYU can make it as far. And so I think being this seed in some ways takes off some of that pressure, where yes, we'd love to be a higher seed, and yes, we'd love to have a better season than we did. But all things considering, I think that's a silver lining, where we've now have this new iteration of BYU. There's some exciting pieces, players that we haven't seen much of this year that are now emerged into the rotation. And so I think that will be interesting to see moving forward mentally how it affects the group, where they don't feel like they still have expectations and they still have high aspirations, but it's not the same pressure from, the nation around BYU to pressure them into making that run. I think it's just going to happen organically and naturally, which is, I think, the best way to be playing basketball in March.
I don't know how, as a BYU fan, you could come to expect anything other than a 6 seed. As Trevor mentioned, just the way the season played out, right? Like, I think 6 seed we would have been selfish to have asked for or expected anything higher than a 6 seed. But number 2, BYU's been a 6 seed the last 4 times they've made the NCAA tournament, dating back to like 2014. So at this point, it's almost a given. BYU is going to be a 6 seed when the time comes for the NCAA tournament. Now, the good news with that is you made the Sweet 16 a season ago as a 6 seed. The bad news is you were 0-2 in the first round in the 2 years prior to that. So which version of the 6 seed Cougars show up this year in March Madness? Looking at the matchups, I don't love the let's play a winner of the play-in team. We've seen how that's gone in years past for BYU. Additionally, the 11/6, I think CBS showed the graphic, 11 beats 6 in 52% of the games over the last 10 years. So more often than not, the 6 seed is going home in the first round. But when I look at BYU's draw and, playing now, we know Texas, and then in the second round, setting up a potential matchup against Gonzaga, I actually like that path more than I like some of the other 6 seeds path. I like it more. I think Louisville is another 6 seed. They're having to play a USF team that's on fire right now. I believe North Carolina takes on VCU in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. I would hate to play VCU. I think they're a sleeper pick for a lot of brackets out there of a potential 11 seed making it possibly to the Sweet 16 or further, that VCU team. So while I don't love continuously ending up in that 6-11 matchup just because of the stats and the data behind that being the most common upset, I do love their draw in terms of playing Texas in the first round, a potential Gonzaga matchup in the second round, more than I like some of these other 6 seeds out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The 6, for whatever reason, it kind of feels like 6 is the artificial ceiling of BYU basketball for, the last 5 tournament runs. They were probably going to get a 6 seed in 2020. They did get a 6 seed in 21, back-to-back 6 seeds, in 23 or 24 and 25. So based on the resume, like I have no issues with it, but based on the route that we got, I'm not sure we could have asked for a much better draw, given I would have rather had the draw BYU got, honestly, than getting even like a 4 or a 5 seed. Cause at a certain point, like the 1 seeds, even based on like my Wackatology rankings that I kind of do every year, Arizona, Duke, and Michigan are so far and away the best teams by resume in the country that I want no part of those teams until the Elite 8. And so at this point, BYU's run to an Elite 8 would be through Texas, who, you think the wheels have fallen off on BYU at the end of the year. Texas was definitely that. You get Gonzaga, who you have familiarity with and will be without one of their best players in the round of 32. And then, Purdue, it's going to be offensive firepower up and down the court, and you just kind of hope that AJ can go hard for a game. But like BYU's run being through a 2 seeds part of the bracket is much more favorable, in my opinion, than if BYU is going to be stacked up against a Duke or an Arizona or a Michigan in the Sweet 16.
Well, and I think there are a lot of people outside of BYU fandom that would agree with you. I mean, Barstool Big Cat had a near mental breakdown a couple of days ago talking about it between his 6th seed and the 5th seed Wisconsin. So it's one of those things where I feel like, especially with travel, like BYU gets to go up to Portland. It's not that much further, frankly, than last year's tournament in Denver. So it's you're going to deal with a lot of rowdy Gonzaga fans in Portland, but you're also going to get a bunch of BYU fans that are going to not only travel from Utah, but already, exist up there in the Pacific West Coast. So it's not a bad draw at all.
To Big Cat's point, like there was a solution here. Don't lose by 30 points to BYU on that awful, awful, awful purple court for the NBA Cup. BYU, the way they wrapped up the Big 12 tournament, we haven't talked since they beat West Virginia by 20. They held it close against Houston for about 38 minutes of that game. Wanted to get your guys' takeaway, starting with you, Aaron, because you were in the building. What was like, where were vibes, 3 weeks ago after BYU lost to Cincinnati by 20, and where are they now after watching BYU knock off Texas Tech, Kansas State, and West Virginia?
Yeah, I think the body of work we had up to that point before we had that losing streak, we knew we were going to be in, right? We knew we did enough in the non-conference and the early stages of Big 12 play to get into the tournament. But once that losing streak came with West Virginia, UCF, Cincinnati, it was a rough stretch, right? I think there was a lot of fans out there that were just thinking, oh yeah, this is a first game exit written all over it, for BYU. And then I think that, Kevin's talked a lot about adversity, and the team has had to put their backs against the wall. And I love that he's mentioned that the defensive schemes have kind of gone out the window, and it's just playing with heart, playing with effort, energy, and simplifying things. He keeps talking about, we've just made things more simple. The fundamentals are what we're focused on. And we've seen that shift heading into the Big 12 tournament, where guys are just playing with their hearts out. They're not thinking too hard. They're not trying to get, certain schemes in place. It's just all about who wants it more. And I think that we saw that firsthand in the West Virginia game. I mean, that was a defensive masterclass. And it's so funny that game of all games where there wasn't true hardcore schemes, that's where we saw it. But when you look at West Virginia was held to 48 points. The only other team that held them to that many this season was Houston. So I think that speaks volumes, right, about what they can do when they're disciplined and when they're working together and thinking more simply. I think it really shifts how things go. Now, West Virginia is not an elite offensive team, so I don't think we, can hold too much into that to say, wow, BYU shut them down. This is kind of who they are, but not every team has been able to get them to be held to as little points as they did. 3-point shooting, defense was incredible there. We won the battle on the boards. Like, we just did everything that we've been wanting from this team for so long, especially since Richie was gone. We had the big Iowa State win, the big Texas Tech win, but in between all that, there was a lot of identity that we still didn't quite see. It was hard to see who this group was going to evolve into and what they were going to be. We know that we have the talent on paper. I think there's been a lot of talk throughout the season. This bench isn't as deep enough. This team on paper, they just don't have enough. We've seen that the bench is better than people think, right? I think it's just how they've been utilized, right? Kennard is a perfect example. At SIU, he was the do-it-all guy, right? He played point guard a lot of the season because of injuries. He was the guy that, was playing off ball as a, catch and shoot type of guy. And then comes to BYU and is only used as a catch and shoot guy, kind of sit in the corner. Hey, we just need you to play some defense and shoot some threes. And that's not his game. His game is much more well-rounded than that. And now that we've unlocked him and he's had the opportunity with Richie being out, I think we've seen that side of him as well that has really opened things up. And he's really started to show who he is and what his game is. So I think that's what we've discovered during the Big 12 tournament is that a lot of the guys that we have just weren't leaning into their strengths. It's super hard to get in a rhythm when you're just put in for 2-3 minutes in a game and trying to make an impact. Playing these 20-minute stretches, I think you start to see guys get more comfortable, more relaxed, and play their game. And especially a guy like Kostic didn't take a lot of threes the first couple months of the season. And here now we have had multiple games where he's had four threes, in games. Kennard, again, another example. He's been able to knock down the three ball more consistently lately. So yeah, I'm excited about this iteration of BYU. I'm also excited because a team like Texas doesn't have a lot of film on this iteration of BYU. So I don't think that they even know what we are yet. I think that we are still figuring that out, but we've seen, a couple games now where these guys have leaned in and into those strengths. And I think it'll be exciting to see if we can continue that play in the tournament.
How much do you think, or do you buy into the, obviously there's the rest versus rust, but just the confidence that a team like Texas probably has right now, juxtaposed to the lack of game prep that they'll have to go off of BYU. I mean, you mentioned that, there's probably not a lot of film on this current iteration of the BYU team, right? Dominique Diamond has been an absolute revelation in Big 12 tournament play, kind of a new wrinkle to this BYU team. Defensively, they've played vastly different over the last 3 games than they were down the final stretch. How do you balance maybe the fact that Texas is coming off a win? They just played, 24 hours ago versus they don't have a lot of time to prepare for AJ Dybantsa and BYU?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when you look at this Texas team, Sean Miller is an incredible coach. He's been at this for a long time. He had his time at Arizona where he really made them into a strong program. Xavier, he had some great years there as well. And now he's doing his thing at Texas. And so I think that he has that tournament experience. He knows exactly what it takes to win in March. And he has a solid team on paper. I mean, Texas has been up and down this year, but in this NC State game, it wasn't their best game either. I think there's some advantages for sure. Getting your feet wet, getting, the jitters off. I know Sean Miller today in the press conference mentioned that it's nice to just be out there in the tournament environment and then have that experience again in your next game. But I think they got to travel far. They have to travel from Dayton all the way to Portland. It's a tight turnaround. And while they're doing all that, they got to, like you said, watch that film and get up to speed on things. So I think it's a little chaotic. I think there's a lot going on. So I don't think the nerves fully go away when you're playing in that second game. Yes, it's good to get your feet wet, but at the same time, BYU proved that, playing a couple games in a couple days that they can do it, and make it happen. And so, and with the tournament, there's time in between those games. So I think in this case, I don't think there's ever a true advantage in March. You could say we have the perfect draw. This team is exactly the team we wanted to face in the first round, and you get upset, right? So I think anything can happen in March, but I think Kevin has realized now we got to simplify the game and play the way we want to play. And I think that has really shifted things for how the team has been playing lately. I mean, we were historically, right, this season, we've been one of the worst teams in the country with assist rates. We have not moved the ball very much. It's been, a lot of AJ doing his thing, Rob doing his thing, Richie was doing his thing when he was around. And now the ball is moving a lot more, right? We're getting a lot more assists. There's more ball movement. There's more, things have just changed a lot for this team. And so I think that bodes well for BYU coming into this, is there's more chemistry between the guys. The only person we saw getting lobs most of the season was Keba. And now Dom has been living up there, living above the rim. So I think that's what excites me most is with the matchup is I think that we know what we need to fix and address. It's not rocket science. I think we know exactly what it is we need to do. And Texas will have, their experience with playing in the tournament already, but we've got guys too that have played in this tournament. Rob's played in it, Caba's played in it. We have a couple guys that know what it means to play in March and to make a run. And so I think that will help, us prepare as well from previous experiences that we've had in the tournament.
Speaking of experience, immigration law can be overwhelming, but Wilner O'Reilly is here to help. With 26 years of experience and a former immigration officer on the team, they've earned a reputation for excellence serving actors, athletes, major companies, and families. They speak 10 languages, including Spanish, and consultations are always free. And now for Hype Train listeners, we are offering priority free consultations. Go to WilnerO'Reilly.com and mention the Hype Train when you reach out. Wilner O'Reilly, peace of mind when it matters most.
Aaron, one thing that you kind of were talking about that got me thinking over here is I think one of the things that we saw in the Big 12 tournament was a lot of maturization. Is that a word? A lot of maturity. Sorry, from our young guys. AJ obviously has done his thing all year, but even he has taken a large step from looking for fouls, like hunting fouls, and then kind of throwing his hands up or giving up on plays when a call didn't go his way. But then you bring in guys like Kadeem Boop, who obviously is like a redshirt freshman, but didn't play a whole lot last year. And then you mentioned obviously Kostic as well. Like there's just been, it feels like in the tournament for the Big 12, there was a youthful energy that was finally met with a season-long experience and like maturity and growth that this team didn't really have, especially during that losing streak. It was a lot of hung heads, like being down whenever things weren't going well. Like the second they were down 15 or 20, like the game was over. And now they're the aggressors. They're the ones, taking shots, looking for their looks. Loved what you said, obviously, about Kennard Davis. Like he's kind of finally found his rhythm. So really like the young guys maturing in the system, and then the new guys maturing in the system as well, if you will. Dominique Diamond, obviously Hunter, you mentioned, like a revelation is a perfect word to use for how he's been in the postseason so far. So to be able to have this team kind of figure out their identity, even if it meant simplifying it just a little and letting these guys go out, use their length, use their athleticism to just smother teams defensively and then go play above the rim on offense has been quite the coaching change at the perfect time for Kevin Young and staff.
A lot has been made. Like I think everyone knows that BYU can put the ball in the hoop. You got AJ Dybantsa, nation's leading scorer. You got Rob Wright, who's averaging 17 a game or so, and you're having other guys step up to your point, Aaron. The one thing that is keeping everyone from believing this BYU team can make a run is their defense. From Bart Torvik over the last, since Big 12 play began, or since they lost Richie Saunders, they're 145th in the country in defensive efficiency, which obviously isn't very good. But in the Big 12 tournament, we saw their KenPom defensive rating go from about 77th to 57th in just 3 games. Do you think that's an anomaly, or was the anomalous part BYU just completely falling apart on defense for a 5-game stretch?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, right? I think the closer we get to March, the more it becomes real for players, right? Understanding, oh, this is the tournament. This is the big thing, especially these Euro guys. They've never experienced this. They've heard about it on TV. Maybe they've watched some things, but the time zone difference is always tricky. So I think it's become more real. And for someone like AJ, he knows that this is it, right? This is going to be his lone season in college. And so I think there's that experience where people start to realize the reality of it all. I think another part of it too is some of these guys on BYU are playing for next season, playing for a place next year, right? Dom hadn't played most of the season. I think naturally a lot of people are like, okay, he's probably going to transfer, right? He's going to find a new home so he can get the minutes. But what was so interesting is earlier this week with the media, Kevin Young talked about Dom and kind of the situation that unfolded. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he said that when Richie got hurt, Dom was the first person to text him. And Kevin said, I thought he was going to text me about something different, which I don't know what he meant by that, but I think there could be assumptions made. And he said, Dom told me, hey, I'm continuing to work as hard as I can. I'm in the gym every day. I'm doing all that I can. Whenever you need me, I'll be ready. And he said, he told the guys, make me play you. Make me play you. Give me a reason to play you. And so I think we've started to see that heart as well, where there wasn't a lot of minutes to go around when you have the trio that we've had all season long. And so now that one of them is gone, I think it changes the opportunity. And so I think that also motivates a lot of guys. Now, we saw them show up for Iowa State, and then things kind of fizzled out, and we had that losing streak, and then we saw it again for Texas Tech. But now we've seen it Texas Tech and onward. Even Houston, yes, there were some mistakes made, and it wasn't perfect, and we ended up losing that one. But we were in it for a good stretch of that game, and we were going tit for tat with them. And so I think that you start to believe when you're beating these big teams, when you're hanging out with them, I think that you really start to turn that corner and say, let's go. We can do this. I think when you're losing to Cincinnati and West Virginia, no disrespect to them, but I think it becomes more difficult to realize, like, are we even good enough? Like, who is this team? We don't have the juice that we thought we had, but then when you're able to show up for these big time games, I think you start to have that belief. So it was a long way of saying, I don't think it was an anomaly. I think that now the team realizes the pieces that are playing on the court now, and who's going to be the team to lead them into March. And I think now they realize this is how we're going to win. We know we're like you said, Joe, we know we're going to get the ball in the hoop, but we also know that we have to get some stops, and we have to make it difficult for teams to answer every bucket that we make, because you're not going to win in March if everything that you do is answered by your opponent. So I think that there's a hunger, right? Like, some of these guys, again, right, aren't just playing for March, they're playing for beyond March. And so I think that's what is inspiring a lot of them to play even harder now than ever.
I mean, it really was an effort issue, right? Like, it's kind of crazy that, normally, like, I always hesitate, like, whenever BYU football goes on a losing streak, like, we'll always get on the podcast and say, these guys don't care. They're not giving an effort. There's no discipline or anything like that. Like, that might've actually been a thing this year. Like, to see a team pretty much quit for like a 5-game stretch, and like Field of 68 pointed it out. And honestly, like, it hurt to hear, but they were probably right, that when you have nothing to play for, like, BYU had already clinched their tournament spot. The bubble was so bad that there was no way that BYU was going to play itself onto the bubble. And like, conference championship was out of play, and you're like there on a Tuesday night in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was hard to get up for those games. We can argue whether or not it should be, but it feels very clear from the Iowa State game to the Texas Tech game to, all the games in the Big 12 tournament. When the games matter, the team shows up and they try. And you have to try to be as bad on defense as BYU looked during that 5-game stretch. And now that the effort's there, I'm willing to say it's a blip on the radar, because a team with Dominic Diamande, Hadim Boop, Keba Keita, AJ Dybantsa, that team is too athletic and too long to not be good on defense. And so I think that's where I'm honestly not as worried about the defense showing up against Texas or even Gonzaga, because I don't question that the effort is going to be there when it's March Madness. Do want to transition a little bit into kind of Texas and what they're going through at the moment. I felt like this is a really good draw for BYU for a couple of reasons. Texas Tech kind of limped to the finish line. They were on the bubble, and a lot of people were saying they probably shouldn't have made the tournament with the way they finished the season. We can't, the whole play-in situation, everyone says, oh, you never want to play the play-in team. This is one of those years where that might be wrong because the bubble was so bad. Texas finished up the season losing 5 out of 6 games, including to a Mississippi, an Ole Miss team who's under 500 on the year by 10 in the SEC tournament. They haven't beaten a team in the top 40 of net since January 14th. So as bleak as things got for BYU, it's probably trending in that direction for Texas. So maybe they found a little bit of confidence, but having watched that game against NC State, I wasn't particularly impressed. Wasn't shot making wasn't on super high display. Texas shot 37% from the field and 29% from 3, which probably means they're going to shoot 70% from 3 tomorrow, because that's just how things tend to go against BYU. But wanted to get your guys' take. What do you like? What do you not like about the matchup with Texas, other than the fact that it's always horns down and BYU does not lose to the Texas Longhorns, unless, of course, BYU is really bad that year in football.
Yeah, I think looking at this Texas team, they are an interesting group because they don't have it. There's not just one player that you shut that player down and you beat them, right? They're a very balanced scoring team. They have, I think, 4 guys that average over double digits. But I think where things get interesting is in the post, right? Texas gets to the line 4th most of any team in the country. They're so good at getting their points from there. I think about 20% of their points come from the line, which is crazy. So that's where they live. And I think if we can get, their front court in foul trouble, it changes a lot. I think they only have one guy over 6'8". So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to compete with them in that way. We have a lot of length. This new lineup that we've been rolling out with Dom and Hadim and these other guys, right? It's a very, very big lineup. So I think that bodes well for us competing with them in that way. And I think, Dalen Swain is a fun wing. He's been one of the most exciting players in the country. He leads the team in almost every category that there is on the box score. So he's someone that didn't have a great game against NC State, but he's tend to show up against the top teams in the country. And the SEC has had some really big games, really big moments throughout the season. And he's someone that I think we will have to neutralize as well. I think that BYU has been very good in these big games, right, to show up and kind of lock down on some players. Even Kingston Fleming's against Houston, we did a good job on him for a good chunk of the game, and he wasn't able to get, as much off as he would have liked to. So I think that, from that perspective, yes, they don't have one single guy, they've got a more balanced team, but I wouldn't say that there's a ton of guys that, are at that elite level. I think it's a very balanced team, and Dalen really is that guy. And then, they got a good front court game as well. So I think the key is really just to get them in foul trouble in the front court, because I think that opens things up. And we know AJ and Rob love to drive, and they love to get to the line themselves. And I think this game could be won at the line. I think this is something that both teams are going to try to get to their spots.
Well, I mean, that might reduce the watchability of the game. But looking at it, to your point, in terms of free throw rate, Texas is 4th in free throw rate on offense and 305th in free throw rate on defense. Meaning AJ Dybantsa, like the issues with AJ Dybantsa not getting to the line against Houston, I don't expect to be a problem. And if AJ is getting to the line, BYU is going to score a bajillion points because this Texas team does not defend particularly well. 195th in the country in adjusted defense on KenPom, 301st in 3-point percentage defense, 305th in free throw rate. Like I said, 349th in turnover rate at only 13%. This team doesn't really get stops. And it's not one of those teams that like is sink or swim where you're either going to get a turnover or a bucket. Like they don't turn you over. BYU is going to get a million shots in this game. 288th in block rate, steal rate. I'm trying to look for their free throw. They are good at limiting offensive rebounds. So like the game could be won and lost at that perspective. But like if BYU can get offensive rebounds in this game and win that battle, again, BYU is going to score a bajillion points in this game if they shoot to their averages.
Yeah, this Texas team is just atypical SEC. It feels like over the last couple of years, like fairly good offense. Like they shoot 35% as a team from three, which Joe, as you mentioned, you can almost double that against BYU half the time it feels like, and take that to the bank at least for a half. But then they don't play a whole ton of defense, and this is the type of game where I would love to see AJ play through some of the physicality. I don't think that Texas is going to bring the same level of physicality as a Houston, as a West Virginia, as
Houston's football, man.
as a lot of these, right? Yeah, there's some football teams that won't bring the same physicality that Houston does, but the
Utah's run defense.
I don't think that they're going to face the same level of physicality. And so if AJ is able to play through contact, he's not looking for fouls, which he has done in the past, and he almost kind of forgets to finish because he just assumes that the foul's coming. There could be a lot of ad one opportunities there. Like we mentioned, like Rob Wright loves to get to the basket. This, to me, like you talked about Dalen Swain, very talented guy. That's got a Hadim Mboop like kind of defensive assignment written all over it, where Kevin Young gets him in the huddle and just basically says sick him, and Mboop's clapping in his face for 90 feet and trying to lock him down. So I feel like we match up well. This, like you said, Aaron, this team is not particularly tall. AJ is 6'9", but he plays a lot taller than that with his vertical and his length. A lot of these guys on this team do. And I think this is where a team like BYU, who's finding their 3-point shot, but ultimately that 3-point shot benefits from a bunch of guys slashing to the rim. This is a Texas team where you can get to the rim. They don't have a bunch of towering guys in there that are going to slow you down. And if they do try to slow you down, they're going to put you to the free throw line, as Joe mentioned, and then they're in foul trouble. So, and then at that point, you're hacking away at him from the 3-point line with Kostic and Kennard Davis. So it feels like a good matchup. The key to BYU success is going to be the same key that we've had all year, and it's just that they cannot start slow. There's just been too many games where they can't hit the broadside of the barn for about 8 minutes in the first half, and then they have this, furious comeback in March. As we all know, momentum swings. That pendulum swings way further left and right for each team. So don't give Texas a reason to get hot and stay hot. And there's no reason BYU should walk away from this game without a win. So,
yeah, one other stat that jumps off the page for me with Texas is they're 301st in 3-point defense. I think this is a game that we should let it rain. Get guys involved. Kennard, Kostic, AJ, Rob, like all those guys have hit, 3-4 plus threes in a game. And I think that if we can space the floor that way too, I think that Texas is going to be wondering, how to even keep up, because in the paint, we know we can get to the line. We know we can crash the boards. We've seen it lately, especially. But if we're able to hit shots from the outside as well, I think it becomes really difficult to find a game plan to withstand BYU.
I have a proposal because it worked so well last year. Last year, for every point BYU scored, Hunter ate a tater tot. This year, for every 3 Moo Davis hits, you need to consume 1 carton of BYU ice cream.
No.
Of your choosing.
I can't.
You might kill him.
Yeah, I can't do that.
A couple weeks ago, that might have worked.
That's the thing. He's been on a tear recently.
Dude, that's
if he hits 1 3, that's more calories than an entire game's worth of tater tots.
How about like not a pint? What are the ones we pass out to opposing fans? How about one of those?
A cup of
that
milk.
was that was on my to ask list of like last year was the running miles, it was the eating tater tots. What is this year's thing?
Well, I tried to do that. Like, this was honestly so sad. I after the Big 12 tournament ended, I posted a screenshot of like a run that I did on the treadmill and was like, we're starting early this year. And like, no likes, no comments after like 3 hours. I ended up deleting it because it just felt so sad that like no one wanted to participate this year like they did last year. Oh, not great. One thing I noted, Kendall Weaver is still at Texas. Like, go look up Kendall Weaver and you will know his face. He was like, I don't know how he's still in the league. He averages like 6 points a game for 3 years, and he's like a 7th-year senior.
He is the Perry Ellis of our day right now. He's been around for so long.
Golly. Going back to Moo Davis, it's kind of crazy how much of a volume shooter he is. Like, I can't remember the account that posted it, but they posted his splits of when he like takes 3 threes in a game, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 8. And at each level, his shooting percentage gets better. Like, he really is a guy. It honestly just takes him a second to find his shot. But once he finds it, man, he starts knocking them down. And I think like we only need one guy to do it. Like, for this team to be successful, AJ's got to score 25 to 30, which he's want to do. Rob's got to be able to finish at the rim, which I actually really like this matchup for that reason, because Rob really struggles when there's a bunch of trees sitting in the paint. With a smaller team in Texas, I feel really good about him finishing around the rim. And then at that point, like, you just got to hope one of your other guys can start can knock shots down. Like, whether it's Kostic, whether it's Moo, you just got to find someone who can keep the defense honest so that it can't pack the paint on AJ and Rob drives. Like, you got to find some kind of shooting, which honestly, like the last 3-4 games, BYU's had that. Like, they do kind of look like their old selves, as if the spirit of Richie Saunders has entered into their bodies for a second. So we just got to hope that continues.
Yeah, I'll tell you who will take threes no matter what is Boscovich. We can count on him to get shots up. So I'm expecting. I mean, we'll see how much he plays on against Texas, but he's got a green light.
How many threes is he going to take tomorrow? Like, is he going to play? I guess is the first question.
Oh, he'll play.
I think the length alone, being 6'10", 6'11", I think causes a mismatch for some guys. So I think he'll find his way on the floor. But defensively, I think the lineup we've been using lately will probably be what we roll out again.
I think the reason I love and hate Mihailo so much is that he's me. Like, I'm only 6'2", but I was still like the tallest guy in my class for like most of my life growing up. And all I wanted to do was hang around the perimeter. He's the guy who you're just like, post up, you're 6'11". Like, you should be playing the 5. And that dude wants nothing more than to just huck threes all game long, which honestly, spiritually, I really appreciate that as a guy who was always told to just put his back to the basket.
Yeah, well, of course I know him. He's me. Right? Like, that's how I play. So
over under 3.5 3-point attempts.
Oh, I'm going to go under, but they're going to be the worst 3-point attempts you've ever seen.
3 feels like the right number. And they're going to be preposterous.
Like, what did Kevin Young say? It's like, he loves Mihailo Boscovich except for the 2 plays a game where he thinks he's Steph Curry or something like that.
I think that was either Kevin Young or Jackson Payne.
Or me.
That quote is attributed to one of those two. I want to get Texas predictions and hot takes, and then I'd like to end with a question for everyone on the panel. So I guess we go around BYU Texas predictions, and then maybe even a little look ahead to Gonzaga, because if they beat Texas, then obviously they most likely play Gonzaga, and just kind of your prediction for Texas, and then what you think the ceiling of this BYU basketball team is.
I'm going to predict BYU wins 85. No, we're going to go 88-79. I think Texas has their legs under them. They're not going to shoot as poorly as they did, but I just do not think they're going to be able to stop BYU on offense. I just think that it's a really bad matchup for Texas. My hot take is that AJ is going to shoot 60% from the floor. I need to see more. Part of that is because he's going to get fouled more. A lot of his misses are fouls. I think the fact that one of the signs that AJ should shoot a lot more free throws than he does is his shooting percentage, because he's too good to be inefficient in pretty much any game. And honestly, the efficiency is because people are getting away with a lot of shenanigans on him. So I'm going to say 60% from the field.
I'm going to go BYU 85, Texas 72. Tournament games like this, especially towards the end, BYU could be up 8 and, you foul a couple times and they win by 13, right? So 85-72. And my prediction for this game is that Moo Davis 13 plus points. I think we know what we're going to get from AJ. We know what we're going to get from Rob Wright. And I think Moo Davis has taken a step forward in, Richie's absence, but also just with his own game, finally kind of figuring out how he fits on this BYU team, and Kevin Young allowing him to explore that space. So Kennard Davis plus 13 plus.
I'll go BYU win 80 and Texas 75. I think that Texas will be better than they were against NC State. I think that especially with how they played, I think you only can be better from how they played. So I think Sean Miller is an incredible coach. I think he, again, has that experience. He has solid pieces. Texas is, I think we're better than them, but I think that they're, because of the weird season they've had, they have, I think, one less Q1 win than we do. Yes, we have more Q&A wins than they do, so they don't have as many signature wins, but I don't think they're a team that can be overlooked. I think that they will, hang around, and I think we'll be able to pull out in the end. But my hot take is that Kostic has 5 threes in this one. I think that Texas is going to pack the paint, right? They're really going to try to close those driving lanes, and so we're going to have to hit outside shots to open things up. And I think that Kostic, his minutes went down a bit last week in the Big 12 tournament, just with these defensive rotations that we were prioritizing. But I think this is a game that has him written all over it. I think he'll have more open looks. We know what their 3-point defense is like. So I think a part of that is because that they try to protect the paint. And they don't do a great job defensively overall. But yeah, I think that that's what's going to be the key to unlock BYU's offense.
That's a hot take. You said Kostic. I saw Boscovich in my brain, and for a split second, I was like, "Holy cow! If that dude hits 5 threes,
he will never relinquish the ball again. He will never pass, ever again.
He'll hit 5 threes, but he'll have taken 25 of them.
My hot take is brought to you by Odeon Menswear. Look good, feel good, and do good. The player that I'm about to mention is going to be looking really good, almost as good as Joe and Trevor look right now in their suit coats. For the YouTube watchers, for the podcast listeners, just take my word for it. Don't look now, but BYU is 9-2 when Dominique Diamond scores in a game. Those 2 losses are to 2 seeds in UConn and Houston. I think Dominique Diamond goes out and gets a career high 10 points tomorrow night against Texas. en route to a BYU, let's say 73-82 victory.
I like that. I think he's been getting more comfortable lately. I mean, we've seen those steals at half court, and I love how he said recently that those windmill dunks are like a layup for him, that he just has the freak athleticism, and that it's just, another day in the life of Dom Diomande. So yeah, I could totally see that. We won't get much shooting from him, but I think around the rim, we know what he can do.
Must be nice. Your ceiling for BYU basketball. Official prediction, Joe has not filled out a bracket. I know where I have BYU in my bracket, and that's the Sweet 16. I think that they can get it done against Texas. I think you go into a Gonzaga game. That's, for me, one of those games where you would hope that BYU can put up a fight. And I think if BYU can put up a fight, it comes down to who has the best player, and that's going to be BYU. BYU is going to have the best player on the court no matter what game they play in and who the opponent is throughout the whole duration of their tournament appearance. And I think when you talk about games like a 3-6 matchup, potentially between Gonzaga and BYU, that matters. And Joe mentioned when the lights are the brightest, AJ Dybantsa delivers. I think we're going to get a Jimmer-like performance from AJ against Gonzaga like we did 15 years ago. And BYU is going to reach the Sweet 16. I know it's the hype train, but that's where the train comes to a stop in my mind. I think, you go head to head against another train-based institution in Purdue, potentially. And so I have BYU losing to the Boilermakers in the Sweet 16, but that's where I've got the Cougs. What about you guys?
So I'm going to go around further because you're right, Hunter. We will play the Boilermakers. But AJ Dybantsa is the spoiler maker, and I think that he's going to take care of business and push BYU. It took Danny Ainge to get BYU to the Elite Eight before. It's taken just insane athletic accomplishments from guys like Jimmer Fredette to get BYU as far as they have. And they're walking into this tournament with the best player on the court. And the best player in the upcoming draft. And once AJ gets hot and the stadiums that he's playing in just fall in love with him like we have, he's going to get things going. And it's going to take a unhuman effort from him to get us to the Elite Eight, but he's shown us that he's made for that. And so give me BYU to the Elite Eight for the first time since the 80s.
You guys are talking about AJ Dybantsa, being the best player on the court. I think this is absolutely hilarious. I'm looking at KenPom.com, and they have a depth chart over the last 5 games where they list each position and then each player's kind of percentage of minutes allocated each position. AJ Dybantsa is listed as a starter twice. As of now, BYU's starting lineup, according to KenPom, is Rob Wright, Kennard Davis, AJ Dybantsa, Keba Keita. And honestly, yeah, that tracks.
And if you look at
he's the backup point guard.
I know he is. Yeah, he's the backup point guard is also AJ Dybantsa.
What position does he play? Basketball player.
The Taysom Hill of BYU basketball.
And guess who we're playing on Thursday?
Good luck. Exactly.
Good luck. I'm gonna say it's not very hype trainy of me. Like, my real answer is probably the Sweet 16, just because that's where I predict BYU will go in every bracket I pick, right? But more like Boiler Fakers, am I right? BYU to the Final Four, baby. Let's look at the run for a second. BYU owns Texas in every sport. Okay, I'm not worried about it. That's a dub. BYU, Gonzaga. BYU is undefeated against Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. Don't ask me any questions about what happened in between the last time we played Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. BYU does not lose to Gonzaga in March, okay? Then you go to Purdue. That's a dub. Braden Smith looks like he should be, my elders quorum minister. That's a dub, okay? Then you go to Arizona, Arizona's got some unfinished, like we got some unfinished business with Arizona. Okay. Like BYU's played Arizona close twice, hard to beat a team 3 times. BYU's beating Arizona to get to the Final Four. I don't even know who BYU's going to play in the Final Four. It's a dub. BYU's going to be in Indianapolis. The lights are going to be the brightest. And you know who shows up when the lights are the brightest? AJ Dybantsa, BYU, going all the way, winning a national championship. That's the ceiling.
You joke. My wife has BYU winning the national championship.
So when can we get her on the podcast?
I've taught her well, apparently.
For real.
Aaron, your official prediction, locking it in. Joe, your mic is every time you adjust and the cord becomes disconnected.
Sorry.
Hands off the mic. Aaron, your official prediction.
Yeah, I would say Sweet 16 is where I think, but I do think it depends on. I mean, we keep saying Purdue, but things could get weird. Miami could show up and play a really good game if that ends up being the matchup. And Miami's one of the best rebounding teams in the country, so never say never. I
already
think
beat them.
we already beat them. We already know what that's like. And if somehow, some way, we got to the Elite Eight and played Arizona, that'll be our third time playing Arizona, and both times we gave them good games, one with Richie and one without Richie. So I think after playing a team twice, things could get really interesting. So the odds of us getting there are not super high, but if we did get into that game, weirdly enough, I mean, Arizona's a team I think could go all the way, but if we had that matchup with them, I think it could be interesting. I think it could be, on paper, I think it's obvious who's the better team, but I never say never. In March, the unthinkable tends to happen more often than not. So, but yeah, Sweet 16 is probably where I think that this team, assuming the seeds win that are supposed to, where they'll go.
A potential Arizona March Madness tournament game would be the basketball equivalent of Texas Tech, where it's like, yeah, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season, right?
True.
I want to ask you this to end the podcast. AJ Dybantsa, first team All-American, joins 7 other BYU basketball players to earn All-American honors, either first, second, or third team. Where does BYU need to go in the tournament for you to place AJ Dybantsa on your BYU basketball Mount Rushmore? Before you give me an answer, where their success kind of came to an end. So you obviously have Jimmer, who's the undisputed GOAT. He's number 1 on Mount Rushmore. He's your George Washington. Sweet 16. You have Danny Ainge, Elite 8. Richie Saunders, a name that Joe has thrown out there on the Mount Rushmore. Sweet 16, obviously, a season ago. You have Devin Durant, who was an All-American. He reached the second round. Mel Hutchins and Joe Ritchie back in the 50s were All-Americans for BYU. They both were NIT champs and second round, back when the NIT mattered and meant a little bit more. You had Michael Smith reached the second round. And then some other guys, you had Yegor Demon, Sweet 16, Kresimir Kosic, second round, Tyler Haas, Sweet 16 on that Jimmer team, and I believe reached a second round later on. Collinsworth, Sweet 16, and then you have AJ Dybantsa. Where does this BYU team need to go? What round do they need to reach for you to put AJ on your Mount Rushmore? Or is he on your Mount Rushmore regardless? BYU loses tomorrow night and you still put AJ on there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say for me, Elite 8. I think with what this iteration of BYU is, the team that we thought we were going to have and who we have now, for him to carry us that far, I think alone would be super impressive. I think Final Four is Kemba Walker vibes, where you're just carrying this team, all the way through and doing something special. But yeah, I mean, if we made Final Four, I think they got to alter the jersey retirement requirements and make a spot for him, because that's just incredible to get that far with this group. But yeah, for me, I think Elite 8 would be where I'd put it.
Well, didn't you hear he's coming back? He's coming back to get his degree.
Yeah, just like J.R. Smith,
We've talked about it already. The fact that Jimmer had to wait like 15 years. Like that should have been 2012. Boom. Should have been hanging in the rafters. He should have been on his rookie deal with Sacramento, and it should have been hanging in the rafters. Preposterous. Joe and Trevor, your thoughts?
I'm going to say Sweet 16. AJ has been the best scorer in the country. The clear, frankly, like bias aside, has frankly been the best player in the country. He should be the number 1 overall draft pick. For him to be on the Mount Rushmore at BYU, you've got to do something in the postseason. Like the game against Kansas State was fun. The game against West Virginia was fun. His performance against Houston was memorable despite the loss, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't make it 2 games at least. So for me, not quite the Elite 8. I think, Jimmer is considered one of the greatest of all time. He never made it past the Sweet 16. The only one really to do that was Danny Ainge. So to hold AJ to anything higher than that feels a little bit crazy given, what he did during the season. But if he can make the Sweet 16, along with the fact that he will probably go number 1, I think that in and of itself is enough to put him next to the greatest of all time to put on a BYU basketball jersey.
Joe.
Is Kevin Durant on the Mount Rushmore of Texas?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think AJ's NBA career is going to factor into this, but Kevin Durant at Texas his freshman year averaged 25 a game, or 25.8 a game. That's around where AJ Dybantsa is. And Kevin Durant only made it to the round of 32 and bowed out. I don't think anyone, if BYU does make a somewhat early exit in the NCAA tournament, I don't think anyone's really going to remember if AJ has like a stellar pro career. In order to be on the Mount Rushmore, a casual fan needs to know who you are and put you on the Mount Rushmore. Like anyone who knows BYU basketball, like has heard the name BYU basketball, knows it's Danny Ainge, it's Jimmer Fredette. And then like real ones who know that are old enough probably would know Kresimir Kosic. But if
any
AJ,
fan of European basketball knows Kresimir Kosic.
for sure. If AJ becomes a Kevin Durant level player in the NBA, he's just going to be put on by default. So I'm going to say round of 32 because I think the bar is really low. Anyone who's a first team All-American, top 2 in the Wooden Award, is going to need to be on that for me. But I think, to Aaron's point, I think he can carry him to the Elite 8. I really do. Like, he is the type of guy who can take you on that kind of generational run, and I'm rooting for it, man. Like, I think there's a lot of similar vibes to BYU and that UConn team, where they kind of struggled on the stretch, earned a lower seed, and then made a run in March because Kemba just went nuclear. I think the matchup is there for AJ Dybantsa to be exactly that kind of player.
I should have gone before Joe because my answer is exactly the same. I think 1 win. I think you beat Texas tomorrow, and he's probably that 4th guy after Kosic. I mean, he's done things that either no one has done in BYU basketball or haven't been done since Jimmer. Just regular season wise, like, his 40-point games, his 30-point triple doubles versus Utah, his freshman scoring record. Like, he had broken seemingly every BYU freshman scoring record before conference play even started. Like, that's how good he was. First team All-American. He's going to be a top 2 NBA draft pick, and he shouldn't be number 2. The only thing that's missing from his resume is a March Madness tournament win. And think of the guys that I didn't name on this list, right? Like guys that are BYU greats that you remember fondly in BYU basketball, but didn't win tournament games, right? TJ Haas, an Eric Mika, a Yoli Childs, an Alex Barcelo, Rafael Arujo, like guys that did not have any March Madness tournament success for BYU basketball that just aren't on your Mount Rushmore for BYU hoops. I think AJ has done enough to surpass a lot of the guys that saw more success. Like he's done more to surpass even in 1 year or Richie Saunders, in my opinion. You can make the argument of like who had a larger impact, right? And Richie being here for multiple years, and a fan favorite, the glue guy of John Rothstein. But I think when you're talking about the greatest players, AJ has surpassed Richie, surpassed Yegor, surpassed a Tyler Haws, Collinsworth, Devin Durant, Michael Smith, like all these guys that have had similar on-court All-American success, wins and losses, and NCAA tournament is the one thing that's missing, one thing that separates AJ from a lot of those guys. So if you just get one, I think the rest of his resume speaks for itself, and you've got to put him up there in the top 4.
Agreed. Cougs by a billion.
Cougs by a billion, as always.
All right. If BYU wins tomorrow, maybe we'll hop on a Spaces. I don't know. We'll see. Play it by ear. But one thing is for sure, Hunter will be doing something to sacrifice his body for the team.
I will sleep on it tomorrow. I will send a tweet of what I will be doing. I need to give some thought to it.
All right. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Cougs.
Go Cougs.